Interesting story, believe it or not. That's what these videos are all about, because there are a lot of stories that I don't think people believe, because they look at the old man and they say, how could he have done this? I agree. I have dementia now, you know, and I get confused with things. I wanted to talk about one morning many years ago at Edwards Air Force Base when I was called for a special meeting, and the meeting was at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I set my alarm clock and I headed to Edwards Air Force Base, not too far from Lancaster where I was working. And I had a very good friend. In fact, he was the committee chairman of my scout troop in Lancaster. And I met with him first, and together we walked over to where NASA was conducting this briefing. And on the way there, we happened to pass a rather unusual airplane, and Bob stopped in his tracks. And he looked at the plane very carefully, and he looked at the wings, and he said, you know something? You shouldn't be seeing this plane, because it doesn't exist. I said, well, it looks like it exists to me, Bob. And he said, yes, but I designed this landing gear on this plane. You'll see it's kind of leaning over on its wing. And he called them, I think he called them pinions. He said, this is a U-2. And it's not supposed to be made yet. He designed it. So that was a little weird, but I just filed it away as another weird thing, because NASA at this point had very loose security, apparently. Top secret airplane, doesn't exist, but there it is on the runway. Bob met with some other people, and apparently it was above my security clearance, and so I said bye. And I went in for this press briefing that they were having. But before, since I hadn't had breakfast, one of the things that attracted me the most to these early morning meetings at NASA was the buffets. And I thought, well, I'll just run in real quick and grab something to eat. I don't want to pass out during this thing. It would be embarrassing. And I walked in to the buffet room, and there were two men standing behind the buffet counter talking, and interestingly enough, they were talking in German. I looked at them very carefully and surmised these are just not two normal men. These are Henry Kissinger and Pierre Salinger, who were involved in the Kennedy administration. And they, get this, they were speaking German. I don't speak German, so I felt I had to say something because they were both staring at me and giving me a dirty look. And I was alone with them. So I said, are these things here, is this bacon wrapped around liver, or is it wrapped around beef? And they looked at me very cautiously and said, it was Henry Kissinger who spoke. He said, it is beef. I said, thank you. Then he said, no, it is liver. So I wasn't sure which it was, because he said it was both. But I'm not going to argue with these two men. But it was a strange morning at Edwards Air Force Base, as was the briefing, and the strange airplane that shouldn't exist, that was parked right on the runway at Air Force Base Edwards. Those two things I thought worthy of telling you, if you shall excuse me.